morning. My name is Jo Bird. I am a creative lead at a company called Lounge Underwear. I'm also a TEDx speaker, creativity coach, and all-around chatty girl about all things creativity. And it's for that exact reason that Flo invited me here today to speak about a very hot topic. It is, of course, the question on everybody's lips. Are we being replaced? Now, unless you have been living under a rock for the past 12, 18 months, you will be fully aware that there's a lot of development in technology at the moment. You are probably familiar with the phrases Midjourney, ChatGPT, Adobe Firefly is the new one. Who's had a little play with that already? Yeah? So there's a lot of excitement in the creative industry about AI and automation. But you know what? There's also a lot of anxiety. And it's those feelings that I want to talk to you about today. What are those creative feelings about AI and automation? And how can we really leverage the technology? But not only that, how can we really use it to thrive in our industry? So I want to start with a little story. A couple of months ago, I, as a creative, took to Midjourney and I thought, yeah, I want to get on top of this. I want to start figuring out this AI stuff. So I hit Midjourney up and I started crafting some prompts. I had an idea in my head of a creative campaign that I wanted to make. So it was going to be spring, summer, fashion, color, flowers. And I craft my prompts, I type them in, and I get these images. And do you know what? I kind of love them. Had a lot of fun making this. I thought, do you know what? If I could take these images to my boss at work and say, I've got this concept, I want to make it happen, here's what it's going to look like, I can guarantee I would have got it signed off a whole lot quicker than I usually do. Nothing on my selling skills, but people like to see what it's going to look like. So I'm buzzing about it. I'm chuffed. I'm feeling really great. I take to LinkedIn, which is where I like to hang out. I upload my images, and I create a really empowering caption for everybody. I say, do you know what, creatives? At its core, creativity is all about an idea. So we could really stop worrying about AI and start to figure out how to use it to help tell our stories. I think this is going to work for brands. I think it's going to work for everyone. So just stop worrying and get on board. So I do my LinkedIn post, I kick back, I'm chilling. Until, of course, Bob arrives. Now, I changed his name for the purpose of the presentation. This conversation is in public domain, so you could go find it if you wanted. Bob's a photographer. And Bob's not happy with me. In fact, Bob's not happy with AI or anything, actually. And Bob says, AI is not a tool for creatives. AI was created by billion-dollar corporations to replace creatives. That is why billion-dollar corporations are already trying to replace creatives with AI. Okay. So I enter a little text thread with Bob, and I'm like, it's okay, tell me how you're feeling, let's chat about this, positive Polly, all that sort of stuff. And Bob goes on to call me willfully naive. And at this point, I think, oh, shit, what have I done? And then a few more Bobs arrive, and it gets a little bit heated. So someone says, regenerative AI is intended to replace, to be cheap, and it started its mission by literally stealing from the artists it aims to replace. Okay, someone else says, the idea that AI is a tool is very short-sighted. The only person that can call me short-sighted is my optician, so this one I was not happy with. Somebody else says, the reality is, the more this progresses, it is likely you'll see brands opt for the cheaper, more cost-effective way out and use AI to create their content, and photographers like myself could see things start to change for the worst. Is anyone a photographer? Oh, okay, just a couple. I'm really sorry. It's starting to get a bit scary up here. It's okay, I'm gonna be fine. Give me a few minutes, we'll get there. So at this point, it's not even 8:30 in the morning. I have not finished my breakfast, and I'm wondering what the holy cow I've walked into. So I decide that I need to do a bit more research. I need to find just a little bit more context. That is when I discovered the Gartner Hype Cycle. Now, Gartner is a US research body that take data and insight to create very objective predictions about emerging technology. And they've got this 5-stage hype cycle. The first stage is the technology trigger. That's when new technology is first launched into the masses. Then you've got the peak of inflated expectations. This is where everybody's starting to use the tech and getting really excited about it. Then you've got the trough of disillusionment. This is where everybody loses faith in the technology and they don't really know how to integrate it into their day-to-day work. You've got the slope of enlightenment, where people start to figure it out and things are getting a little bit better. And then you've got that plateau of productivity. And that is essentially when the tech is fully integrated into our everyday workflow. So just think laptops, mobile phones, things like that, fully in the plateau of productivity. So I check out the hype cycle for 2022. And as you can see, generative AI is right down there at the bottom, just in the innovation trigger, getting flown out into the masses. And Gartner predicted it was going to take about 5 to 10 years for AI to plateau into productivity. What's interesting is I then found the Trends Impact Radar for 2023, so a mere less than 12 months later. Generative AI is now actually only 3 to 6 years away from being fully integrated. So what we know is AI and automation is happening, the genie's out the bottle, and guess what, guys? It's fast. It's happening very, very fast. 65% of creatives cited AI as the most important tech trend of 2023, and I'm going to hazard a guess that that's just going to carry on. We are fully doing this. Simultaneously, I heard that the godfather of AI himself, Geoffrey Hinton, this guy has been working on AI since the 1980s, quits his job at Google to talk very openly about his concerns about AI. He states that it's going to create more violent societies, misinformation, and wait for it, job losses. So now, I'm starting to see things a little bit clearer. He said this stage of AI was not foreseeable. And until very recently, I thought this existential crisis was a long way off. Existential crisis? I thought just a few photographers were going to be like, but we're now talking an existential crisis on humanity? Right, who here manages a creative team or works with creatives or, yeah? Okay, quite a lot of people. Then you know all too well what an existential crisis feels like, because I'm a creative and I have one on the regular. But the fact that the whole of humanity is now going to start to wonder what's going on, that's a little bit concerning. This is no longer a conversation of man versus machine. This is, in fact, a conversation of man versus self. This entire AI discourse is forcing us as humans to hold a massive mirror up to ourselves and ask, who am I? If machines are cheaper, faster, smarter than us, what value do I bring? And now I'm starting to panic, just like Bob and his friends that accosted me at 8:30 in the morning one day. So I am a positive Polly, as I've already said, and I do have hope. The reason I have hope is because I've done a whole lot of research on this topic, and every AI expert says the same thing. Yes, this is the situation, but none of us know what's going to happen. Utopia, dystopia, the future is unwritten, and it is on us to figure that out. So I want us to ask, how can we harness the power of technology rather than feeling threatened by it? This is when I discovered the story of AlphaGo versus Lee Sedol. Now, for anyone that doesn't know, Go is one of the longest, oldest running board games of all time. It's been going for thousands of years. And it's a board game played based entirely on human intuition. AlphaGo was Google's computer AI-generated version of a Go player. And Lee Sedol was the best player in the world at that time, virtually unbeaten. So they decide to do a man versus machine on a game of human intuition. Can AI act like human beings? So we're 3 games in to the 5-game tournament, and the computer is whooping his ass. So human beings are starting to get a little bit scared until Lee Sedol makes the 78th move. They called it the divine move. Why? Because it was a 1 in 10,000. Based completely on human intuition, or as I like to call it in creative, it was a happy accident. And that happy accident won Lee Sedol the game. It threw the computer off, there was no response, it held its digital hands up in the air and said, I don't know what to do with this. Lee Sedol sort of walked off. Okay, great, nailed it. So it is true that whilst computers are better than humans at computing probabilities, Human intuition helps design better systems by revealing technical flaws. It's this idea of intelligence augmentation, or as I like to call it, it's co-creation. It's when machine and mind work seamlessly together to create a much stronger entity. But of course, for this to work, that relationship has to be extremely reciprocal. It cannot be self-centered. And I find that very interesting, because if you know humans like I do, we are very self-centered. So how are we going to do this? I take this quote from Albert Einstein, so I think it's very timely. Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. Kind of true. I think what we're stuck in at the moment as humans, as creatives, whatever, is comparing ourselves to this machine too closely. We are not AI. We are not a computer. We do not share the same kind of intelligence. We are built for different reasons. Our minds work very differently. So what we need to do is play to our strengths. This is me as a child. Great hair. I know. Look at the bows. Thanks, Mom. Remember when you're little and you're learning everything for the first time? You have this innate curiosity to just figure things out because that's all you can do. You don't know anything, so you have to ask questions like, why? You're so pure and innocent. This is the mindset we need to go back to as human beings. We need to begin to ask why all over again. This is a picture of a butterfly, in case you didn't get it. I drew it when I was a child. Took it home to my parents from school, because I've always been artsy. They loved it. Absolutely cherished it. Kept it all these years. Like, look at this picture of a butterfly. It's great, because I, as their child, made it for them. If a computer had done this drawing, my parents wouldn't have really cared about it. But because I did the drawing, it meant the world to them. The context gives creativity its meaning, and the meaning gives its value. It's like this picture of a castle. It's not about the digital render of the castle. It's about what this castle means. Can anyone tell me what this castle means? And what does Disney mean? Happiness? Yeah? Magic? Memories? I put someone in this crowd yesterday to shout these words, and I don't know where he is. Where are you? Yeah. Magic, memories, thank you. So, yeah, it's not about the digital render. It's about the castle. The Mona Lisa. Why is it the most famous painting in the world? It's not just the artist that created it. It's because it's displayed in the Louvre, and it's subject to one of the biggest heists of all time. It's all these things that make its context. The Fountain by Marcel Duchamp, it's a urinal, but it was made by an artist and put in an art gallery, and bam, you've got value. Wouldn't have the same effect if it was outside by the dumpster, would it? It's the context that gives creativity its meaning, and the meaning that gives its value. I love this quote by Seth Godin, marketing genius. If you ran everything through a spreadsheet like AI and automation, you might end up with a rational plan. Do you know what? You really will. But the rational plan isn't what creates energy or magic or memories. That's us. We decide. It's the emotional exchange. It's the work you create and who you create it for and what that means to them. And then we can elevate all of that with machines, AI, and automation in the idea of co-creation. Here's a couple of examples. Sherwin-Williams, speaking in color. This was an AI tool generated for architects. So all they had to do was speak their idea into a device, and bam, color palettes for days. Kind of fun, kind of cool. Even better when humanity and tech and art join. This is a Project Convey, which was an AI tool developed for people with autism to help them understand non-verbal cues through the use of emojis. Phenomenal work, all made possible through co-creation. It's the idea of that 78th move, the divine move, and we are on the brink of that. So what's the strategy? How have I decided that I'm going to move forward with this? Well, we know that we want machine and mind to work seamlessly together in a very reciprocal relationship. That means tech and art are joined. We're not enemies. We can work together to build a much more fruitful, productive society. And that's me being super productive because all the rubbish is taken care of once again, and I can focus on being creative, which is absolutely where I want to be. But in order to do that, I have to think of little me again. I need to be innately curious and ask why to everything all over again. Ego out the door. Tell me everything for the first time. I have to test and learn. So take to Midjourney, ChatGPT. Don't get scared of them. Don't get angry at them. Figure it out. If you're leaders and you've got teams, you need to get on board and get started. But this is the huge caveat. We have to be responsible. We all know the ethics of AI are not yet figured out. This is on us. Don't wait for somebody else to bring the ethical conversation to the table. You need to do it. And that's what we need to be doing today. That's why we're all here. What are your concerns? How can we talk about those concerns? How can we make sure that our teams aren't feeling so concerned about this? If 1% of the world put good stuff into these computers, we're going to be absolutely fine. That's us. And a few more. We need to be honest, not just with our teams and our colleagues about how we feel about this technology, but with ourselves. If you are in doubt and if you are struggling, you need to have conversations because great things happen from conversations. Don't bottle it up, don't get angry, just speak about it, and we'll figure it out together. Stay agile, because as I said, this is moving like the speed of light. And if you're someone with a fixed mindset, you are going to get left behind. So be agile and get ready to pivot. And finally, most importantly, learn to enjoy the process. Because if uncertainty has taught me anything, it is you have to be here and now in the moment. Understanding the moment, appreciating the moment. Today, take everything in, challenge things, listen, learn, and really enjoy where we are here and now, because we don't know what the future holds. So that's my divine move, and now it's over to you. What will yours be? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe.
No problem.
Very interesting. Machine and mind, I'll remember that. I think we call it the hybrid model.
Yes.
Pixelz, but machine and mind. And there's still some hope for us.
There's always hope.
Great, I like that. Questions now.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Good. We have the first one here. What is your personal favorite AI tool or AI hack right now?
I covered it in my talk, but honestly, Midjourney at the moment. I hate to be the cliche one, but I'm a creative, so I'm a very visual person. And as I mentioned in my talk, the fact that if you're creative, you know, when you're pitching an idea, a lot of clients or employees or bosses need that literal example. Otherwise, they just don't want to give you the money to execute it because there's too much risk involved. So as a creative, the ability to sort of imagine worlds, whether it's a set design, I did that recently where I actually sort of created a set design that I'd said out loud and everyone was like, what are you talking about? And then I did a Midjourney and I was like, look how it could look. And everyone was like, oh, I get it now, cool. This is really game changing for me, for sure. So I think just having a visual tool that can help paint the picture of what's in my head and get the budget signed off to go and create the magic, that's the balance of using AI in the way that I would like to integrate it. I wouldn't like it if they then just use the AI. I like that sort of tangible element. Yeah. But for me, it's that visualization.
So you use it to become more productive.
Yes.
And creative in the process.
In the process. It's always about the process for me. Anything you learn in school about creativity is about the process. It's the idea. It's how you talk about the idea. And so for me, Midjourney is that sort of advancement that is like a mind-blown moment.
Perfect. Great. And then on to the next question here, which is a little touching on some of those things we talked about, like motivation and stuff in the workplace.
Yeah.
This question goes like, how do you approach educating, motivating your team to explore new tools? How do you keep them, you know, how do you motivate them and keep them interested? And how do you manage that whole thing.
Yeah, it's a challenge. People don't like change. It's just a fact. I mean, humans just don't like change. If you're in a bit of a mode with something and someone comes along and says, you should try this, it's like, get out my space. No, I'm cool, thanks. My number one tactic for leading my teams, if you couldn't tell, is empowerment. Because for me, there's no point me dragging them to the answer. They're just going to be like, no, I don't want to, thanks, bye. Whereas if I'm like, hey, I'm doing this really cool thing over here, do you want to come and join me? It's almost like, oh, I want to go and join you, so let me come over. So it's really a sense of empowerment and making people feel like there's something really cool going on, look at us all using it, and then people tend to flock where other people go. Yeah. It's a little bit of a dirty tactic, I guess, but no harm done.
Well, I think if it's back to the good old carrot or the stick.
Yeah, exactly.
You're using the carrot.
As long as they get the treat at the end, you know?
Yeah, good, cool. Next question here. Do you know of any company that actually implemented AI-generated images in their daily processes? Because we talked a little out back, and there's a very big difference between playing around with tools and then actually implementing them in like a large-scale operation.
Yeah. Do you want me to name and shame? Are we going there? Are we doing this? You probably already know. I'm pretty sure it was Levi. Did anyone see that?
The models.
Yeah, the models.
Yep.
And actually, my friend Bob, that was the exact example he used. So the one that I talked about in the talk. I think they got a lot of backlash from that. I think what went wrong was they forgot.
Does everyone know about the Levi's?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Would you just very briefly what that was about?
Yes. So what Levi did is they AI generated a plethora of diverse models to model Levi clothing. And the argument is, why would you do that to be diverse when you could hire and pay a diverse team to come and model the clothes? So, you know, although the good intention to be diverse, is it diverse if you're not actively being diverse? So that was the real conversation. And I think there was a real naivety and one-sided viewpoint from the brand. I'm so sorry, Levi. I have good faith that you're going to fix this. But I think it goes back to the conversation we were having just earlier over breakfast was it's all about your intent, and it's balancing up the use of AI and thinking, yes, we could create a really diverse team, but how can we balance that with a real-life diverse team here and not just rely completely on AI to do the work for us? It's a cheap and dirty tactic, like, oh, well, the work's done, bye. No, we still have to do the hard work. So I think that's where they went wrong. The only counter-argument I can see, to be a devil's advocate, is if you work in-house in brands, you will know there's not often the budget to photograph and work with hundreds of diverse people. Trust me, I try every single day to get more and more and more signed off, but they just don't have the money. So I suppose Levi were thinking, oh, we weren't going to do this anyway, so now we can actually show it. But I still don't think it quite works. So balance is going to be key, for sure.
Yeah, and I think you have another important thing that is the intent. Thing that we talked about, right?
Yeah.
That you have actual good intentions
100%.
With what you're doing, and that's not because if it's not based on good intent and it's just a question of saving money, right? You will be. I mean, people will look through you, and your brand will be suffering from it.
Yeah, consumers are savvy. Like, well, I know from working with social media brands. Used to work for Gymshark. Like, you'd put anything up on that social channel that wasn't authentic, and bam, you would hear about it. So I think customers are going to really hold the narrative a lot in this discourse, but that's still our responsibility as brands to really show them how things should look. We can paint that picture in advertising. We're very powerful, so let's do it responsibly.
Good. And then another question for you. Now we're elevating things a little. How should we educate the business or management that AI is an assistant and not a replacement for employees?
Yeah,
because it's fun. Question. I mentioned to you this morning as well. I was at a meeting in New York a couple of weeks ago with one huge brand over there, and they were asking us, we need your help. With what? Yeah, because our management team, they've told us to come up with a plan on how to use AI. What can we do? And it was like, you know, between the lines, it was like this was not to elevate content. This was to save cost, right? That was what it was all about. So how do we actually educate them that this is not necessarily only about cutting costs?
Well, first you've got to educate yourself. which is why events like this are really good. And actually, it's a great opportunity because we've been, for the past few years, post-COVID, in this mode of not going to events, not networking IRL. It's been really unfortunate, but it is at events and things like this that you have conversations with other people that have perhaps already started to implement the technology, that you can then ask them questions, what worked, what didn't, and then you can take that knowledge back with you. So yes, go ask your boss to get signed off another trip to go to another event, because actually it's pretty crucial. It's crucial to go out there and learn. You're not going to learn it all by sitting on your laptop at home. What do you learn from doing that? You don't, it's not enough. You need to go and speak to people and connect. And that's the exact message that we're trying to fight for. Like humanity, we need each other. We need that human connection and emotion to learn and grow. So don't wait for it, just go ahead and do it. But I'm preaching to the choir because everybody sitting here is at an event about AI, so tell your friends.
Yeah. Good. I'll jump to the second one here from David. David is asking, I'm not following you on LinkedIn yet. You'll probably get a couple of new followers after this. But with what have you presented and what have you learned since your initial post? With what you have presented and have learned since your initial post, did I follow
it with Bob? No, pride. Of course I didn't. But he might see this, so he'll be like, okay. Not yet. No, I didn't just now. But I think that's because, as I was saying to you, before you educate others, you have to educate yourself. I think perhaps he had a slight point, and I was walking in naively in a sense of I had one point of view about this. I had my point of view. And actually, as a leader, you have to have multiple points of view because you have to have your team his best interest at heart. So what I guess his point was, you're not thinking about the photographers, you're an art director, of course it's not really affecting you just now in that way. So I think it's really opened my mind to think, okay, what about everybody else in the room and what does this mean to them? So maybe I'll send a nice little note to Bob soon. Just be like, hey Bob, it's me.
Cool. I have another question for you.
Yes.
And now I'm back to the intent and the branding of different brands. Do you see a difference in how very, very high-end fashion brands can apply some of these technologies and what they can get away with using compared to some of the like fast fashion brands? Do you see a differentiation in how they can approach this?
I think it's going to be interesting because I think with those premium fashion brands, the heritage brands that actually have a lot more longevity in their lifespan, they may be a bit more reluctant because for them, they have a lot more of a brand story to jeopardize. I was surprised at Levi. That's why I was surprised at that story. I would imagine that the fast fashion brands are much more excited to jump on board because it's going to save them time, it's going to save them money, and they sort of just want to like get batch imagery and campaigns out the door. So that one did trigger me a little bit. I was like, wow, okay, Levi. But I think ultimately for any brand, whether it's a premium brand or a fast fashion brand, it all goes back to the same principles. Like we keep saying, intent, educate yourself before others, be responsible. And I think it won't matter which kind of brand you are, as long as you're demonstrating how you can integrate the tech in a responsible way. I think people will be open to it. But responsibility is the key word, and we have a long way to go with that. So, yeah. TBC.
Good.
No one knows the answer on that one.
Nope, we'll see. But it is fun because we work with some of those heritage brands.
Yes.
And it's actually fun. Some of them are even going back to shooting like real editorial on good old-fashioned film, right?
Love that. That's what I mean. I thought premium brands would do that because it's the point of difference again.
Yeah.
Weirdly. I mean, film keeps coming back round, doesn't it? But
and it's like looking for that complete authenticity, right, in what they do. So that is it's super interesting what's going on.
Yeah.
I'll take the next one here, the Industrial Revolution.
Okay, guys, you're going to test me now.
Promised similar things, but led to an inequality between craftspeople and technology owners. How do we avoid AI displacing most creatives?
We have to invite everybody in. So I think what happens in tricky conversations is you've got my point of view, your point of view. Okay, what do we do now? But with any sort of conflict, it's very hard to do. It's not human nature. But when you have a conversation, good example, diversity and inclusion. I've done a lot of training on this. The number one tool and tactic is to invite people into your argument, so to speak. So if somebody's challenging you, you ask them lots of questions. Why do you think that? how do you feel? What's going on in your mind? Let me understand, because everybody's point of view is valid. So to not displace creatives is to simply not displace them. Invite them in, understand where they're coming from, what's the fear, and what can we do together to resolve that fear. There will be an answer. It's just most of the time we don't take the time to consider what the answer is.
No.
So yeah, invite people in, be a human about it. Now's the time.
Yeah. It sounds like when you're talking about this, you're basically talking about the way to handle this, like some of the ways that we as managers would basically treat any change management situation. Involve people, invite them in, listen to them, make sure they know what's going on, make sure they're part of the process in order to actually adapt what's going on, understand the whole journey in order to avoid some of those frustrations that I mentioned in the beginning.
100%. Like we keep saying, process.
Yeah.
It's all about process. Take people on the journey. My sales tactic when I'm trying to pitch an idea is that I take them on the journey. You forget sometimes that people aren't walking in your shoes, living your life, like self-absorbed as we are. But if I'm pitching an idea that I've been working on for 10 weeks, my CEO has never seen that before. I've got to act like they're seeing it for the first time. So where did I start? What was the challenge? What was next? What was the answer? Like, bring them on the journey. And I think that's honestly what we can do together is go on a journey with each other. I think there's no other way. And like I said, like, we are not the machine. We're not designed the same as the machine. Play to our strengths. Storytelling, empathy, understanding the process, inviting people in. These are all human strengths. So let's show them what we got.
Cool, good. I just need to touch on this last one. We talked a bit about that during lunch as well. What are your thoughts on copyrights for using AI?
So I'm going to start this by saying, because a lot of people ask this question, I'm going to start by saying I am not a copyright lawyer. So in terms of the ins and outs of copyright law, not my forte, not my expertise. But if you're asking my personal thoughts on it, it's that absolutely we need to nail it. We need to nail the boundaries, the sort of way in which that you can create work as an artist and have your rights respected, as we have done with music and art previously. But it is going to be a minefield. So we're going to need some experts that are not me to work that shit out. But I would say that I am somebody that will be very hot on it, and I will be looking to understand what those conversations are, and I will be somebody who is actively and proactively asking other people, what are we doing about this? And anything I hear, I'm going to be implementing or sharing the story. So I think, like I said, being responsible, it is of utmost importance at the moment for us to be very responsible with this technology, and hopefully that way we can move to a very enabled and empowered creative world.
We're out of time, Joe.
Such a shame.
Thank you. Yeah, 2 minutes ago, but I was told in the beginning when we had the rehearsal this morning, if there's only 2 minutes left, don't give another question, because maybe she'll go on for another 5 minutes and we don't have that.
I probably will.
Good.
It's okay, they're sick of me now, it's fine.
No, it's fine. No, a big round of applause for Joe. Thank you very, very much, Joe. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.